Welcome to the Reiki Business Collective, where Reiki business owners come together to share information, support one another, and serve the world. Thanks for joining us. I'm Christian of Standing Stones Healing, interviewing and inviting Reiki business owners to join the conversation in the Reiki Business Collective Facebook group. Thank you. Welcome to this episode of Reiki Business Collective. In this episode, we are talking with Nathalie Jaspar. Nathalie is a Reiki master with more than 15 years of practice, a graduate teacher from the International House of Reiki, trained with the Center for True Health and International Center for Reiki, and studied Zen Buddhism in Japan at the Chokai-san International Zendo. She is the author of Reiki as a Spiritual Practice, an Illustrated Guide, and the Reiki Healing Handbook, and host of the Dive into Reiki podcast. She has a lot of great knowledge and information to share with us. So Nathalie, thank you so much. Welcome to Reiki Business Collective.
Thank you, Christian. I'm very excited to be here.
Yes, we're honored to have you. Thank you. Nathalie, please, let's just begin by having you tell us a little bit about your business.
So my Reiki business is probably a little bit different. Many Reiki business are based on offering sessions and classes. My Reiki business has to do a lot with the person I am. I am a writer. I work in advertising. I draw. So in time, I started integrating everything I am beyond Reiki into my Reiki practice and make a business out of it. And we'll probably deepen into that later. So my Reiki business is two things, a lot of mentoring, because I struggled to really understand Reiki, and there was not a lot of deeper knowledge that now it is because we've gone to Japan. So I've used mentoring and everything that has to do with education. So I write books. Some of them are illustrated books because I draw. I was a journalist for many years, so I also bring interviews. So it's everything that has to do with communication, which is ironically what I do for a living as well. I combine it. And so that's it. It's probably the Patreon, the platform for mentoring, the podcast, the books, and all the Reiki drawings. So it's really bringing everything that I was and incorporating and creating a different sort of business. And I still give sessions and classes as well, but actually that's probably like a 40% of my business only.
Well, thank you so much, Nathalie. So Nathalie, I know that you wanted to talk with us about things like business proposition, branding, and things like that. So please tell us a little bit about some of the tips that you have to pass along to other Reiki business owners.
Absolutely. So that comes a little bit when you hear my business proposition, and I hope it was clear enough because I'm so not used to talk about the business side, right, that I ramble a little bit. So what happened to me, and I think it happens to all of us, Reiki has a wonderful thing. Reiki can help everyone and has 300,000 benefits. So that is good because our target out there is everyone. The trouble is when you set up a business for everyone, and this is basic marketing, I work in advertising, and it took me a long time to actually apply it to Reiki. When you have a proposition that goes to everyone, you're talking to no one, right? Because you are so open in your business about benefits and your language becomes very generic that you really are putting something out there that doesn't really appeal to most people, right? So if you go to most websites, you're going to see a lot of the websites that we use to promote or the language we use to promote is actually the manual, right? And I did this because when I was studying Reiki and starting my website, I checked every website in New York, and half of them had very similar language, which was mostly copy and paste from the manual, right? And this is not about criticizing that. This is because Reiki actually truly helps everyone. I want to bring this beauty to everyone. So my website and my business was also like the traditional, you go to Reiki 2, professional level, in quote marks, or you take a Reiki 3 class and they give you, okay, this is what you offer. You offer Reiki sessions, you offer Reiki training for 1, 2, and 3. There is no talk of mentoring, and you do group healing perhaps as well, right? And remote healing. So you had your products. So it was probably a few years ago, I had like this very nice website, and New York offers a system of mentoring for new business and small businesses called SCORE. So I got this mentor and I went, I'm telling you, that website, I was so proud of it, right? And I was doing good. I was teaching classes, like my Reiki circles had a waiting list. It wasn't like I was struggling. But I went there because I wanted to take one step further. So this woman who didn't even hadn't heard about Reiki before in her life, she went to my website, I gave her the links, and this woman came back to me. She had researched the same thing I did, all the Reiki website. She looked at me, is like, why is your website different? Like, why will I go to you than all the rest? Everybody's offering relaxation. Everybody's talking about these benefits. And you said a book was coming out. I don't see anything about your writing. I saw your Instagram, their drawings. I see nothing about your drawings. Who are you and why will I go to you and not to Mark Simons or Pamela Anderson? I don't know, I'm making up those names, even though like the actors, whatever. And I felt horrible because that is my daily job, right? I realized I never was told I could do something different with a Reiki business, right? I was never told I don't need to follow the path that I was told. And so one thing, I also work with a coach, and the one thing I wanted to do was, okay, who am I talking? Again, Reiki can help everyone, but my personality and my quirks and my way of living will not, I'm not gold. Like, not everybody will love me. There is some people who actually enjoy working more with. And because I was in corporates and always working corporate, I had burnout. I was obsessed, like, I'm going to then define my core target to people in relaxation from corporate. So I defined that, and there is a twist to that story, but that already, went from like, I'm not talking to moms, I'm not talking to dads, I'm not talking to older people, I'm talking to people who are between 28 and 40, mostly female, who are having corporate burnout, right? So that already took a business that was very all over the place, defined it, and then it's very obvious. When you have a target that is very clear, the benefit is relaxation, right? And re-energizing. So that was very clear. What happens is, even though I was one of them, that's not the target I like to work with. But by closing, that's when I started to feel my Reiki circles more and everything. Like, really, I could see a big jump into my business, because I wasn't talking Reiki is this amazing life force that can help anyone. I could already say Reiki is going to help you deal with corporate burnout, like with brain fog, with that lack of energy. So that was a lot more concrete. And people would say, like, that's me. Like, I'm feeling exhausted. I don't sleep well. I'm not digesting well. So people could say that is for me, right? And to be honest, there's so many people suffering from everything that sometimes we don't close our target audience because we want to get more business. In my experience, actually, you get less because no one is almost like, it's like you're sending the stuff to fish, without any, what do you call the carnada? Sorry, that's Spanish. When you put a little worm you need to put a worm into your stuff, right? So you need someone to bite, and in a good way, you're serving these people. But if people don't feel identified, you're not helping anyone. It's not just business, it's also serving. So that made a big difference. I started to have a mailing list, I started writing about it. And what came is, like, the more I wrote about it, I realized I like writing, but that I'll leave it for after, right? So I designed that. And so what you want to do as a Reiki practitioner, that's the first thing, is practice, practice, practice. Do sessions to very different people. And then take 6 months, a year. Again, I think patience and practice are big things. And do it. When I started, I do it with donation. I never did free sessions just to a friend. Like, unless, for example, if a friend had cancer, they couldn't afford Reiki, I will do it. But most of them, they will give me $20, $30. So I never did it for free. And I use that money to actually pay for Reiki classes for friends. So I will donate it as well. But what that did is, I work with a bunch of corporate people who were burnout. And I work with everyone, and that gave me, this is not my target. I actually like to work with people who have a spiritual practice, but they're feeling stuck. And it feels like a very narrow segment. But that's what I really enjoy and resonate. And that's when I am at my best, both as a practitioner in sessions and as a teacher, right? So I narrowed down from corporate burnout to something even smaller, right? People who actually may have a job, but they have a spiritual practice. It could be meditation, yoga, that, anything. And they're feeling that their practice is either stuck or it's failing them. And those are the people I know serve. And I can tell you that my business probably went 5 times over since I narrowed down to this tiny percent of the population, which again, in New York is actually not as tiny, right? Like if you do that narrowing down in a small city like you are, that's not going to work. But when you're in a big city, you can narrow it down to something that really resonates. So what happens is when I work with people that I feel I'm really helpful, my sessions are better, everything is better. I give them what they need, right? And that's the kind of communication I have. So I have more repeat sessions. At the beginning, I always offer like sessions people will not come back, or maybe 1 out of 10. I have probably like an 85% repeat session rate, right? And most of the people who don't come back is because they really wanted to explore Reiki, but they couldn't afford to come. So maybe they come once a year. But that is okay because, when you have a lot of people like that, it builds up over time. And again, I'm in a city like New York City. But even if you're in a tiny town, if you offer everything to everyone, like, oh no, Reiki can help with anything, it sounds almost like a magical potion. And we know it's true because we have experience. But, we really need to understand that most people are not very familiar with this. And some people are even a little bit scared of this. And also there is a lot of wellness trends that are not being that efficient either, right? Like all the stuff like from Gwyneth Paltrow and Goop, those weird things. So when you're in a small city, perhaps you're not going to narrow it to that tiny segment that I did. But for example, I was working with a woman in Italy because I'm working on actually to do a training where we're talking now, how to define your target in the Reiki and how to communicate, right? To come up with a proposition. She's Italian, she lives in a small town in England, right? So what we define is actually she likes to work with women who are probably facing a struggle about not finding their purpose, right? So that is a lot more defined that Reiki helps everyone. That is going to help you, target your communication. And I know communication sounds like a different thing, but you cannot have a business without communicating your offer to the world. And that I think is also a big mistake as Reiki practitioners. We set the business, we set the website, we post a few things on Facebook, it doesn't work very well, and then we feel like we failed. So business and communication really, really, really happen. And that can be different ways. I know people who don't advertise, but they're on every podcast. I don't advertise a lot, but I write books. So communication and Reiki business are one and the same, right? And we're going to do it our way. And again, when it's like if I'm throwing 300 tennis balls, right? Reiki offers all these benefits. How many balls can you catch? I think probably not many, right? So you have to think about that by narrowing down, it's like the reverse. The more you narrow, always take into consideration your city, the bigger your business will grow. Again, don't be also too crazy. I'm only going to say, and please, anyone who's sensitive to anything, but don't become, but I'm just using an example. Let me use aliens so we don't get offended. I only going to work with aliens who are under 5 pounds, have 4 eyes, and they're really, really struggling sleeping. Like, you have to narrow, but don't narrow to a point that there is like 2 people, suffering from that. So narrowing, use a little bit of common sense, check the demographic that you're surrounded. And the other thing, do research, right? How do you define your targets? So I want to work with corporate burnout, right? At the beginning. If I had done research, I would have done that most Reiki practitioners in New York City work with corporate burnout because we all go through the same thing. So then if I'm the last one coming with corporate burnout, I either communicated or bring a very different twist on it, or I might struggle a little bit, right? Because the other people already got there. So maybe, what if I work, again, I twist it, it's not corporate burnout. I let other Reiki practitioners maybe do that. I may be like, well, what if when these people do burnout and they start having energy again, can I help them find the pivot time, right? Or can I actually do prevention of burnout? So do research to see what they are. If, again, you're in a small town, it may work for you. Like if everybody's offering this very generic, narrowing down will make you different. If people are very narrow, then choose an area that is not taken. If you like working with women, for example, and I talk about women because as women, we love to work with new moms, or we love to work with women in corporation, and men as well. But, I'm talking probably based on my own preferences, even though I'm like, I offer like equal opportunity session, but in experience, I work with 90% women. They come to me more, right? So maybe you say, okay, I'm going to work with women who are pregnant in their 20s. Like, again, if you're a small town, maybe I'm just going to work with pregnancy or with fertility or with actually menopause, right? Because women really struggle. We don't talk about it. There is a lot of shame on it. That's a huge market nobody's really talking to. Because why? Because it's a weird thing. But helping, and every woman goes through menopause. Thank God, if they make it that far, right? And it can be anytime from 40 to 60. You have a very defined segment and very clear benefits. Women who struggle with hormones, or teenager as well, like helping. So just think about what could work in your town that will make you a little bit different, and then your business makes sense. And then that also helps you solve a problem, right? So once you have, okay, I'm gonna work with those aliens who are under 5 pounds and have 3 eyes and they can't sleep, right? So when I talk and someone tells me, what do you do? I won't say like, oh, Reiki is a life force, blah, blah, blah. And 15 minutes after, I still have not landed in what I offer you, right? Because I offer you relaxation, pain relief, and all these wonderful things that are true, and you may find your true self. I'm going to say to this tiny little alien in my hand, because they're tiny, so I'm raising them so I can talk to them eye level, even though I don't know which 3 eyes to focus, right? So I'm going to look at him and say like, well, Reiki is going to help you relax. And by relaxing, you're going to be able to sleep better and deeper and wake up more refreshed. That little alien is like, sign me up. There are no chemicals. There are not like side effects. I'm going to sleep. I've been desperate for sleep, right? So, and you're seeing where I'm going, like, and we're not over-promising. I think also probably the dark side of this, let's not over-promise, right? I think a lot of times to sell the business, we also define, and then we say, well, and again, I think also that happens a lot in female empowerment, because we've been going through a period of female empowerment. If you take Reiki, you're going to manifest the life that you want. That is very narrow in objectives, but obviously we're calm and centered. We're going to take better decisions. We're going to make better decisions and have a better life. But we need to be very clear. That's the way it happens. When you get to know yourself, to be more compassionate, more accepting of who you truly are, of course, life is going to be a little bit better, right? It's going to manifest in a better way. But we also have to be careful when we come with this business proposition to really remember those Reiki principles, right? And to really be anchored in things that people won't be disappointed. I think part of why I'm getting not only return business, but people who study with me, most of them spend a few months in my mentoring platform on Patreon, is because when you promise something that is very human and beautiful, right? People don't feel disappointed. So the other day I gave a sample session to a person who gave a gift certificate for a session to his girlfriend, right? I said, well, come and try it. I'll give you half an hour. I'm not going to give you a full session. I'll give the session to your girlfriend and then come. So he's there and, he's like, first 10 minutes, he's like freaking out. Why is this woman placing her hands on me, right? And then he relaxes. And then after, obviously he relaxes, we have another 10, 15 minutes. He's kind of smiling. And then we finish. He says, well, it was nice. I felt really comforted. I felt safe. And I asked him, how often do you feel safe with someone you don't know? How often do you feel safe in your body? How often do you feel comforted? He says, he stopped. He said, actually, never. I said, well, it sounds like a simple thing, but it's huge. Like just bringing it down to like, and also asking them, like, because they make like, oh, I just feel safe. Like, yeah, of course, there were no, again, that alien didn't show up during the practice or not 300 generations of like ancestors. But we need to bring it down also in the way we communicate. We're very clear in our benefits. For me, being safe in the body is really important as well, because I always lived somewhere else, right? So we also feel, again, we feel like it's less, but it's more. That person open, his eyes open, we're like, oh, I can actually feel safe in my body, and I can use this to feel safe in my body. And this is actually allowing me, when you're safe in your body, you can do anything, right? Your life is very different. So again, clarity and how we communicate, but to communicate clearly to this person, I have to be very clear on what I'm offering. I'm not offering you a magical solution. I'm offering you to be centered, to be calm, to feel safe, to bring everything that you are with acceptance. That's my business proposition when I offer sessions, right? And perhaps if, for example, that's a very funny story. I went to offer, we were offering with a friend like these services to the Jets, right? The football players. Because we had read another guy was using Reiki, but he was a coach and he was very happy. So I went there and the guys are like, because that coach had tried Reiki, he was kind of interested, right? So I went to do a trial and it was with the three coaches, the big coach, the whatever coach, and the other coach. These like guys, pure muscles, pure energy. One session after the other, guys fell asleep. I'm so relaxed. Oh my God, I can't believe this. Well, guess what? They say, no, we don't want you. You're going to relax our players and it's not going to work. And you don't talk enough during the session. So they decided Reiki wasn't for them. I think, honestly, I was the wrong practitioner for them because I Reiki practitioner, I'm very quiet during my sessions. I don't talk. I remember going to one of my teachers. She was very vocal in a nice way. I'm placing my hands here so you let the tension, can you please let the tension go? So a Reiki practitioner that has a business proposition that a little bit more active probably would have been better. That was not about, finding that very calm and they had communicated in a different way. The Jets will have had Reiki, right? But I still, for me, that is one of the best stories. As you can see, I'm not shy. I will reach out to everyone. But that also tells you, I went to Fashion Week, right? I work with models and fashion designer. I went to corporate at Soho House. I went to the Jets. And then I started noticing what I like, right? So you also have to practice a lot and then don't narrow just with your head. And I hope I didn't ramble too much.
No, that is all amazing. Nathalie, thank you so much. Wow. That was, we hear so often this encouragement to, oh, you have to pick a niche. You've got to select your niche. And I think that there is a lot of resistance to that for the exact reasons that you mentioned. Well, if I pick a niche, then I'm not going to get any clients. And how do I do that? And it just seems so very daunting, I think, and very limiting too. And so I think that, as I listened to you speak, I felt that there are people listening who have been resistant to that idea of picking a niche. And I feel like the way that you explained it, really, I feel that it's clicking for people and they're saying, aha, I get it. And what I also really like about the way in which you discuss it is just this idea of it being really about what you want to be doing in your heart and your passion, and selecting a niche or even determining your niche from a heart-centered kind of place.
Absolutely. And thinking that by doing this, you're actually reaching the people who need you, right? So Reiki is a very different kind of business. It's a spiritual business, right? So when I started serving the people I could really help, my business grew, but also these people finally knew to reach. My website is very strange. It's very about Japanese, if you go to my website, I don't get as many responses than other websites get, but the people who reach out, they're going to either take a class, most of them, or have a session because they needed that. And they were like, oh, I was looking for that, right? I do martial arts and I'm very vocal about how the martial arts have helped me in my Reiki practice. I get some people who study Aikido, karate, they will probably come to me more, right? And so I think it's both you. And again, I'm telling you, I didn't even pay taxes. When I was narrow generic, it was so hard for me to get clients. And I was so keen. And I did mailings. I reached out to Vogue, to every magazine. And then when I started narrowing it down, it became so much easier. It's you still have to do your work. And another, to just finish that thought. So now we use Instagram and, social media has become a big thing. So I struggled in Instagram in the beginning, to go over 100 followers. And I think a lot of people in the Reiki community, we struggle to get followers, right? And I know we need to use Instagram to sell, but the first step is to build awareness of who you are. And then you can build trust and then you can start selling, right? And I see most people get stuck between 300 and 600, right? And when I started defining who I was, obviously my communication changed. because I have the words for it. I use my testimonials. I like, well, I actually do this, and I work a lot with young people. Don't ask me why, but like most of my students are in their 20s, right? So I take the Reiki things and I make it in a more younger speech. Like, how will I explain this to someone who's 24? How will I explain this to someone who doesn't believe in this? And I started having a very particular style of communicating. And now I still have only like 2,200 followers, but that for a Reiki practitioner is actually quite decent, you know? And that growth happened in a year and a half, like, you know, and then with the latest algorithm, everybody should not feel frustrated. Like the latest algorithm change, like also you need to understand there's things you can control, algorithm and life, you cannot control with Reiki. But when the algorithm was different, I grew like 1,000 followers in like in 6-7 months when I started being, this is who I am, this is who I serve. And this is the problem I solve, right? It's all about education, helping other Reiki practitioners understand the practice. So it helps in every way. Yeah.
Yeah, that's really great. And I will say for the record that I do not have many Instagram followers myself at all. So thanks for that encouragement. You know, what I just heard you saying in all of that was, again, a lot, so much, but it sounds to me like what you're really saying is that you need to define who you are serving and the problem that you solve for them. So talking about who you are, the who you help, and how you help them. Can you tell us, you know, how are those the kinds of questions that we want to be asking ourselves in order to get clarity on that? And what other ways should we be working, or could we be working to help us define that business proposition?
I love that question. Actually, those are the three questions, but like almost like Reiki practice, they sound very simple. They're very hard to answer. So there are two things. I think that's where the Reiki practice comes in, right? Doing your practice every day. So you let go of what you're not. Like, you know, we struggle to define Reiki. But if you think about the Reiki precepts, what is Reiki practice? Letting go of the anger, worry, so we can be more grateful and reconnect with who we truly are, right? So do your practice. And there is a beautiful benefit of Reiki that we don't talk a lot, but that's the one that it brought into my life. If you have to ask me about the biggest gift, acceptance. Acceptance of who I was, right? And when you accept who you are, you bring other gifts. So practice, 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 because we have an idea, especially when we go into Reiki, we have this idea that now we're good people helping the world, right? And that is a beautiful purpose, to become better. But I think we become a little bit blind about who we are, right? And for me, when we practice Reiki and we're honest, it brings a lot of darkness. But without my darkness, who am I being compassionate to you, right? So that darkness is actually what fed my business. It sounds because when I look at what do I struggle with, you know, self-esteem, fear of codependency, fear of not getting all the people to like me. You know, they're very human things. So when we're very clear about who we are, we become clear about other people, right? So practice, self-knowledge, working with the precepts, doing your hands-on healing, whatever your lineage is, those two things are common to all the lineage. And those are the core, right? And meditate with the precepts. So be very clear of who you are. And when you have that, then, okay, also be kind to yourself. Like, who do I enjoy working with, right? Because I used to give sessions to some people. I didn't enjoy it. The corporate people, and actually when they're like, oh, I have to go. And then I work with people who were like on cancer treatment, you know, people living with cancer. I loved it. I'm like, and then I will offer people stuck in their like meditation practice. I loved it. I'm like, why am I being torturing myself serving people I don't really enjoy? Because I don't think when I can be working with people living with cancer that bring joy into my life, don't ask me why, but I really enjoy working with them because they're beautiful people, like they're beautiful sessions. And then people like this, when I can work with people who actually I enjoy. Sometimes we feel like, oh, I have to help the world. Like, no, it doesn't work like that, right? So offer session, perhaps the first step is offer sessions to everybody as a practice, but don't set your business yet. You know, the first step, and we talk about this, pause. So you get your Reiki 2 certificate and you're excited. because Reiki is so beautiful. It's like, I don't want to work in a freaking office. I don't want to work I work in advertising, and it's a toxic environment. Like, it's very ego driven, it's very subjective. They're also very lovely, interesting people. It's hard work. So I took a sabbatical. I'm like, I'm gonna be a Reiki practitioner. Obviously it didn't work because I wasn't clear yet, right? So get your Reiki 2 certificate. And even if you're dying to just do this for a living, take a year to offer sessions to cats, to dogs. I'm not even saying only humans. Check what you like, and write notes, but don't write notes like, I did this chakra, I did this. Did I enjoy this? How did the session, what was the reaction of this person? And you're going to notice a pattern of people who first come back, right? And you really want to choose a demographic when people come back, because getting new clients is hard. Getting repeat business is what's going to give you some sustainability in the long term. Who did I go to offer these sessions that I went with like open heart, and I left with an open heart versus drained? I'm like, I don't know if I can do this for a living, right? And do it for a year at least, because the first month, everything feels fantastic. First 3 months, like, oh my God, I'm doing this Reiki thing. After a year, their moms were like, oh, I don't want to go and see this person on the first session. Like, you want to go, but there is something resisting, right? When you have resistance, sit. I am resisting because I am drained, I'm not taking my rest, I'm not doing enough self-practice. Am I resisting because this is probably not my target? Is there, and then you notice patterns, and then you make the decision, right? So then you're ready to sit down. Who am I? Who do I want to serve? What problem do I solve? Another thing, testimonials. We get all, even if you're doing your first, like, I always recommend people to do 50 to 100 hours. Like, I think 100 hours should be 50 minimum before starting your business. Ask, even if you don't know if you're going to set up a business, ask for feedback, ask for testimonials, read them. Like, go to your home, send me 3 lines about what the session felt, send me 3 words. When you gather 20, 25, you're going to start seeing one benefit that goes over the rest. And that can help you to, well, that is what I'm solving. And it may be, perhaps, that's the other thing I always say, we're talking about demographic, that tiny alien. It may be that you actually narrow down your benefit to sleep, digestion, relaxation, but then you really talk, your whole website doesn't talk about pain relief. It doesn't talk about anything. It talks about relaxation, right? And the benefits of relaxation. So you can narrow it by also doing that. So be practical, do your self-practice, ask people, like, I feel something is Reiki, we place the hands, we do the healing, we do everything. No, ask people, what did you enjoy from my sessions? What did you not do? And you're going to see a pattern. So you need a year, you need 50 to 100 sessions. Get those testimonials, go over your diary, keep notes, and then honestly, it's going to be written very easily. It's almost mathematical.
Wow, that is incredible. Thank you so much for those tips. That is, that is really just so, I think, empowering in terms of this idea that you don't have to figure it out. You don't have to make the decision. You just have to do your thing, offer sessions, and then uncover the patterns and just see, almost in a sense, like what floats to the top naturally, and then be able to use that and go from there for your business proposition. I think that's really powerful. So thank you so much for that.
You're welcome. And if you think about it, it's the same. We cannot grasp Reiki with the intellect, right? Reiki practice, there is an intellectual part, we can read books, but we grasp it with practice and experience. And then you get those weird insights that pop up. You don't know how. It's like, oh my God, what is this insight? Like, and you deepen your practice. And I think with the business, there are some basics you need to do. You need to know how to keep your numbers. You need to know where to rent space. You need to do a numbers part that has intellectual requirements, right? Like, you need to, okay, what is my time worth, the space, all those things that we're not going to go over these, because it's a whole nother. But the part about this, about defining your, say, like, if I ask myself, for example, when I did that, right, my answer was like corporate burnout, because I was thinking with my head without having done 100 sessions, right? I had done already pretty 40 to 50 But I didn't look at the pattern. If I had looked back at those 50 sessions, the 3, 4 people, because I had a lot of repeat like that I love, were yoga teachers who were struggling. It was already in there. I just didn't want to see it, right? So just the same, you can have an initial like reaction. I'm gonna focus on that, but be flexible. So try, and that's another thing, like what may be true today to you. I'm talking, okay, right now, I used to love working with people living with cancer, but the pandemic made it impossible, right? But beyond that, maybe 2 years from now, I will not enjoy that anymore, right? Like, so you set your target, but every 6 months or every year, revisit, probably every year, maybe better if you have a business and making a living out of it. If you're not making a living out of it every 6 months, sit down. Do I still enjoy this? Am I still loving helping these people? We grow older, right? So perhaps when I was in my 20s, I loved working with women who were trying to get pregnant in 20s and 30s. As I approach, I'm sorry, I'm talking very female based, but it's really based on my experience, but as I approach my 50s, maybe I don't want to work with people trying to get pregnant in the 30s. Maybe I want to, okay, women who retire, what do they do? Or men who retire, right? Or non-binary or whoever we are who retire, humans, right? So I want to, like, because retirement is also very hard, right? Like, we're humans, we work for like, every time it's more like 60, 65, 67. I don't think you and I will have a retirement. But then these people are like, they don't have a purpose anymore, right? So maybe that's when you are reaching that age, maybe that's your purpose, helping those. So you have to narrow it down, define, and then this is very like Reiki, firm and flexible. Okay, this is my target for now. Some people, they have a business that flourishes and blooms for 5 years, and then they say, Nathalie, suddenly like it's dry, like no one is coming for me. Because perhaps your heart is no longer there, or perhaps society has changed, right? Smoking was supposed to be good for your digestion, right? And now we know it's horrible. So society's changed. Maybe you got maybe people are living like they're not leaving the houses anymore. So then you need, okay, what do I do that I can do virtual? So set it, but don't set in stone and don't be rigid about it. So hopefully that is also very important.
Oh yes, absolutely. I am positive that really resonates, especially because Reiki is so flexible and Reiki is really limitless and the possibilities are endless. And so why really box ourselves into one way of serving and one niche, if you will, and to just allow that to open up and develop and unfold in whatever way it really needs to. So that is absolutely beautiful. Thank you so much for that.
You're welcome.
Yes. So is there anything else that you would like to share with us as far as the business proposition? I mean, that is all a real wealth of information, and I am positive that listeners are going to want to listen to this again because there's so much in here, so many great tips, and so much really to unpack. Are there any other tips, thoughts, pieces of encouragement that you would like to pass along on this topic?
I think actually I want to go back to something that you mentioned. And we don't, and I think for me it came in the words, I remember when I was in Instagram and I stopped growing, right? Like sometimes, again, I have my very spiritual moments, I have my very moments filled with light, and I'm very human and I'm not the best human, so I got stuff like, my Instagram is not growing and that person has like more followers. What am I doing wrong, right? And it came to me very clearly, my spiritual practice is not my amount of followers or my success in Reiki business, right? And that I have it very clear. And that also helped me like step back and I have a part-time Reiki business that is thriving and is I enjoy every moment of it, right? And it brings, honestly, is the one thing that keeps me like being able to also do my work in advertising. And I've done something a little crazy. I bring my Reiki practice into advertising. I try to be, not to get angry, not to be worried, to actually help my colleagues stay centered and, and try to be compassionate. And I feel mostly people try to do that, but like your regular job can be your Reiki practice. So I think the last piece of advice I will say, you don't need to have a Reiki practice. Sometimes it feels like that because you want more Reiki into your life. You want your life to be about Reiki. And that, I think we all go through that, like, because it's such a beautiful, peaceful practice. It's like, why am I going to go and be a cashier in a supermarket or be a nurse and have a really rough time? First of all, when it becomes a business, there is a lot of stress that comes with it. It's not the easiest of business. And yes, you can say I'll manifest, but that means a lot of personal work, right? So unless if you want to do that risk very at the beginning, have a lot of savings, right? Like, it's because you don't want the money to destroy your only spiritual practice. So, and again, I think that desire comes because it's such a beautiful practice. So my biggest advice is take a pause. When you do your Reiki 2, it took me 8 years to become a Reiki master, right? Even if you feel it, take that year to practice, to slowly, first of all, when then you have your business, you're going to have a mailing list, you're going to have people spreading the words, you're going to have testimonials. Just start slowly, practice, and also see if you really like take a whole Saturday and give 5 sessions a day. You need to give 4 to 5 sessions a day if you're going to live from this, right? How does that feel? Could I do this every day? Really explore it, approach it with an exploration, and understand that your Reiki practice success has nothing to do with the business success. It doesn't mean you're less of a Reiki practitioner if you tried the business and didn't work, or if you decided it's too hard to set up a business, or if you don't set up your business. Your Reiki practice can actually be deeper because you're going to be doing a lot more self-work, right? So that is my advice. And then if you're going to go into a Reiki business, remember Reiki business. So really take your time, not only to practice, but get tools. In New York, there is like free business classes. They train you to set up new businesses. And they give you free accounting, free marketing classes. There are mentors like Association Score. And those things are pretty much in the United States, like most cities have them. They're free or very cheap programs where you can learn how to market your business for $40. Like, take classes. Those classes are so, but they're good enough that you can get started, right? And they help you how to set up accounting. I got a free lawyer consultation, right? So take your time. And then if you're trying a business and it doesn't work out, try changing. If it doesn't work out, take a pause, go back, work. Don't feel like a failure. This is a spiritual practice. And if you want to bring more Reiki into your life, also consider there are other ways to do it, right? When we're compassionate and kind to our families, right? When we try not to be angry and worried about them, when we try to be a center of peace to our families, when we try to let go of toxic and codependent relationships in our lives, that is Reiki practice. When we're trying to be a center of light in a workplace, with pandemics, workplaces are hell, most of them, right? That's why we have the Great Resignation. That is Reiki practice. So expand a little bit of what your Reiki practice is. It's not placing the hands on someone. It's becoming a center of love and life. And we do that through the Reiki system, right? To be in that bright light. But I remember, not in this job, I have a new job, but I go to shoots, and advertising shoots, they may cost anything from $500,000 to $3 million for a day, right? So there is stress, because if you don't capture what you need to capture, you're not wasting. So everybody's pretty stressed. And I used to there is in Japanese Reiki meditation called Joshin Kokyoho, which is very centering and grounding, but you expand your energy. And I used to do Joshin Kokyoho it became second nature. I've done it for years. And then I was always calm, right? In the shoots. I wasn't really feeling calm, but I was able to stay calm. And people would come frazzled, and I would just say, like, breathe, relax. But because I was calm, shoots will calm down and we'll finish. And this is not talent. This is just simple breathing. I'm not being special. I'm not being an angel. I'm just breathing and remaining centered. So we forget that we affect everyone we interact with. So you don't need to have a Reiki business to have a life filled with Reiki. And I think the first thing, perhaps, first question before all the questions I already gave you is, am I doing Reiki as a business because I actually will enjoy doing this full time for a living, or because I want to have Reiki permeate all of my life? That is the first question I will ask everybody to do, And there is no right or wrong answer. And if you took an answer and they're like, crap, I should have done a business, you still have time to do it. And you'll have a lot more practice. You don't need to rush. Actually, all the people I know who are most successful at Reiki businesses, they had a few years under the belt when they really started to actually charge for it. And others are amazing. Some people are natural at business and marketing, and they do it from day one. But there's some people who run very fast and they go to the Olympics. There are some people who are I could draw as a kid without taking classes. So we have special talents, but most of us, I'm not a business person. And I'm actually taking business classes because I decided, well, I also don't want to stay without, I don't do business. Well, I learned to do it proficiently, but I wasn't born but I have a facility to talk and communicate. So we all have to, again, be honest with who we are. And if we don't do the Reiki business now, we can do it in 3-4 years, hopefully, if there is space, we're still healthy. But also Reiki is a thing you can do even when you're 80, as long as you can sort of sit and breathe. You can, that is the beauty, it's not like fashion. You have either you're a model from 14 to 25 or you're never hired anymore, right? And again, all my references are very much related to my experience, like work experience, but you get the feeling. So I think that is the question. Do you want to fill your life with Reiki, or do you really want to make a living out of Reiki?
Wow, Nathalie, that is a million dollar question, isn't it? And I think that you have just put it so succinctly. Do you want to have a life of Reiki, or do you want to make a living out of Reiki? And, you are so right that just because you love Reiki and want to have a Reiki filled life doesn't mean that you have to do that by starting a Reiki business. And that if you do want to start a Reiki business, it's always going to be there. It's always going to be an option. So thank you for all of that incredible encouragement. That is absolutely beautiful, Nathalie, as well as all of your metaphors. So thank you so much. This has been incredible. Please do tell us how people can get in touch with you, anything that you might have coming up that people might want to know about.
Absolutely. So basically it's dive into Reiki, and that's another marketing class. Be consistent. So you can find me YouTube / dive into Reiki, on Instagram and dive into Reiki, Facebook, and my website obviously is dive into Reiki. Right now, I think you can, obviously I've written books, not about the business or communication side, which now I'm thinking maybe I should one day do a little book, but they're nonfiction. One is an illustrated guide because I basically struggle with the meditation side of Reiki. I'm very visual. It's a tiny guide because I felt a lot of the books were very long, but I didn't have anything practical. And I'm very much, as you can see, I'm like, give me that practical advice, right? I'm a little bit dumb, so I need that. I need the stick on the head. I have another book that is more about Western Reiki, but because it's seen from a Japanese perspective, it's probably the most Japanese Western Reiki, which is a Reiki healing book I did in partnership with a person who really understands chakras. My intellect and chakras, we don't get along. That's why I keep it very simple in Japanese. It's not because I don't like chakras. I get overwhelmed with thinking. But they're lovely books. They're very simple. So if you're struggling deepen in your Reiki practice or you're stuck, sometimes those books may help you. They're very approachable. Everything I try, my mission in life is making something that is very abstract, very approachable, and very human. So every human can benefit on it. I even teach sometimes Reiki meditations to corporates, but I tell them they're inspired by Japan and martial arts. I don't tell them they're Reiki. But knowing how to talk, that's because they're 25 sales guys, so martial arts is going to work better. But so everything, if you're really struggling with understanding, I think every time you feel something is very abstract or struggling, I think what I offer either with my free podcast or with my Patreon mentoring, Dive into Reiki, is I'm trying to say something that sometimes feels very out there, very magical, very abstract, or bigger than we are, right? Who me as a simple human will grasp all this beautiful healing energy. I try to make it very easy to understand and very practical so we can all practice, because for me, I think we should all be practicing Reiki. Right? For me, it should be you go to high school and you have chemistry and Reiki or spiritual practice or meditation. So I try to make it very engaging as well and very relatable. So that will be my principles. I am planning on doing a communication class. I'm already doing the beta testing, which is basically doing the exercise we're talking about together as a group, because they sound like very simple questions, but when you do them by yourself, you end up binging on Netflix, or you end up like overthinking, like blah, 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 blah. So it's like training you how to do those exercises so you can do them by yourself. That should be probably opening in June. But that probably you may want to follow me on social media or like the mailing list, and probably you'll get there. But yeah, I'm probably like, I call it street Reiki. I like to make these things like, hey, no matter if you live, I live in Harlem, if you live here in Harlem, or you live in Harrisburg, or if you're someone like in Berlin or China or Nigeria, like make it so simple and human inside that like everybody can understand like how wonderful this practice is.
Yes, I love that. That is beautiful. And doesn't that lead us right back to the importance of communication in all of this? That is incredible. Thank you so much. Nathalie, I want to say thank you. It has been such an absolute honor to talk with you and to just hear all of your wonderful insights, encouragement, and inspiration. And so I want to say thank you so much for joining us on Reiki Business Collective. It has been a true honor, Nathalie. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me, Christian. I feel like this is so important because, you know, all of us are talking a lot about how to deepen our spiritual practice. I think more people are coming about the marketing side, but I love that you're creating this space where everybody can talk about their experience and bringing those insights, because I think that's the part we don't talk about, but we struggle a lot, right? Some of us even resent like, oh, why do I have to work like this when I could have a Reiki business? Well, no, don't. When you understand you can have Reiki in your whole life, you stop resenting having to work, and life becomes a lot easier for a lot of us. Or you're actually successful, right? You hear tips that are going to help you in your business. So I really appreciate that you're bringing this space to have these discussions. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much for being an important voice in this discussion. So thank you all so much. And sending Reiki blessings and best wishes to all of the listeners. Thank you all so very much.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening. Please like, subscribe, share, and join in the conversation at facebook.com/groups/ReikiBiz, B-I-Z. Blessings and best wishes for your Reiki journey.